It is 11:32, and without further ado, we'll get started. As you folks can recognize, I'm not Shelby Arthur, who was our fearless leader for BCPC. Shelby has started her family leave and has welcomed a little boy into their family. Mom and child are doing well, and she sends her hellos to all the folks working hard in the broadband community. And I think if we could go to the agenda slide, we'll go over what we'll be talking about today. Oh, this is the intro slide. Yep, as I mentioned before, if you're able to, please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, the area you cover, and your role in broadband or your organization. So today, this is our agenda. We'll be going through some updates, some countywide updates. We'll start up the north and go down the coast. We'll have a roundtable discussion where we'd like to invite folks to share what they're doing within the broadband deployment and adoption in their areas or communities, or open up to any questions, just a discussion moment. Then we'll go into the meat of our presentation today, which is a discussion on broadband and economic development. We have 3 guest speakers from the Economic Development Collaborative to engage us on the topic. We'll go into some updates from CPUC, CASIF, CDT, and some BEAD updates and digital equity updates. And then we'll go through a look ahead on next month's topic, and we'll close it out. Does anybody have anything interesting or important to start before we get into the roundtable discussion? Nope. All righty. So we can start with SLO County. I believe we have Michael Foote on the line. Michael, are there any interesting updates related to SLO County for broadband that you can share?
Hi, everybody. I actually don't have any interesting updates today. I'm sorry. I was looking through past notes of what we have going and was looking on the call to see if anyone else from SLO County is represented. I'm not seeing anybody else to call out. So fortunately, no updates from SLO right now.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else in the area? I don't know if we have.
Well, I'm in SLO County.
Oh, hi, Jeff.
Astound, and I think everybody's aware of what we're doing. We've pretty much finished the build out in Grover Beach and Morro Bay, Old Town Paso. We've got a project going on in Tascadero. All that's moving forward. I don't know if there's anything new that we haven't heard about. We're just about complete with a build from SLO to Grover Beach, and we're getting ready to land a undersea cable, building new cable landing station there, a few things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Very cool. Okay. We can go into Santa Barbara County. I see Carrie, so I'm going to call you out and see if you could give us any updates on the North County fiber ring.
Well, I think Chris is more likely to give us an update.
Chris is here too.
We're part of his committee now. The only thing I would mention is in today's paper in the Tribune, they're talking about the drones that are being sent over Oceana and Aurora Grande. Great article. So I recommend everybody try to read that about what they're doing between the 13th and 20th to look at the routes for the broadband. Good summary article there. So I'll defer to Chris because we're just kind of in the caboose now.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. And I apologize if there's background noise. I'm working from home today, and I picked a bad day to work from home because they're re-roofing my house, so it's very noisy. Yeah, not a ton new since the last time we met. We're still waiting on the FFA, and we have identified some additional areas working in conjunction with Econ Alliance in North County to do some additional or more extensive high-level network design in certain areas up there. And so a little bit in a waiting pattern right now. I don't think Jasmine or Fred Luna are on the call. I didn't see their names. They might have some additional updates, but I don't think they're on the call right now.
One interesting project that is beginning in northern Santa Barbara County is a partnership with BCPC and Econ Alliance to assess the connectivity for mobile home parks in the region. We've identified 16 mobile home parks throughout different communities in the priority areas of North County, Santa Barbara, and Econ Alliance will be ground truthing some of the connectivity assumptions and needs in the community there. And so that project should take us through the beginning of summer, and hopefully by June or July, we should have some interesting updates for that. On the Ventura County front, let's see, I can provide a general overview, and Bill Simmons, if you want to interject on anything or remind me of anything there, that would be great. But for Ventura County, BCPC is working with the Ventura Council of Governments to develop a county broadband strategic plan, and we have just wrapped our first round of city council presentations. We're beginning with the draft document and working on focus groups within the area for, just to identify the priority areas and the community's needs there. So our hope is that by the end of May, we should have a comprehensive first draft that we can begin to share with folks. And then by June, July, a final draft to present as well. And John, I see you have your hand up.
I just had a question regarding your mobile home parks up in North Santa Barbara County. Do you know the approximate location for those mobile home parks? You do?
We do. And I can connect with you offline to share that information. I believe they're scattered throughout Buellton, Lompoc, Santa Maria, and maybe Guadalupe. And so I'll identify those and share them with you and Chris.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other county, area, regional updates that folks want to share? Oh, one final update is in Santa Barbara County, the city of Goleta was awarded a grant from 3CE to grow their digital upskilling initiative to the community. And actually, you'll hear a little bit more about that program today in our presentation. But the first cohort has wrapped as of this week with really great response. It's the pilot program, and I think the following program will begin at the end of April. We'll have 6 cohorts in some of a new to tech course and 2 cohorts of the Get Your Small Business Online, and both have been really well received. So you'll learn more about that program and see why it's so well received a little bit later too. But that is growing the digital literacy and the digital upskills in our community. Alrighty, we could go to the next slide. So if I could, I'm going to ask Bill to introduce our first presentation speaker, and that is Bruce Stensley.
Just when you got your email, Malika, last night asking me to do the introduction, and I got into this deep reflective mode, thinking about economic development over the last 10 years and how much has changed. I mean, it's amazing when you think about the fact that when we started as a consortia, we viewed broadband as an amenity, and it rapidly through COVID became not an amenity, but a necessity. And how the conversation changed, I think it is now inextricably connected to every economic development initiative there is. It's foundational across the board for activities in communities. And it's just broadband is rapidly becoming viewed as a utility. And that's a good thing. And that's our dreams come true from a broadband constituency standpoint. We never dreamed it could happen, and it's happening today. And so I'm looking forward to our presentation. Bruce will give us, I'm sure, a wide swath of economic development activities And when you start talking about upskilling and a lot of the workforce development aspects of it, that's going to, the connection is the foundation. It's where you start. And we're just really looking forward to how communities can branch out and think about economic development strategies once broadband is in place. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bruce and let him go.
Well, thanks, Malika. Thanks, Bill. Good to see y'all. I don't have a ton of material. I have a handful of things that I really want to throw onto the table. Most of it will be preaching to the choir. These will be things that you're already familiar with, but maybe we can put them together in a single sort of package and hopefully stimulate a few comments, discussion going back and forth. My opening comment on this stuff really comes down to this. We, as the consortium, we primarily focus on two issues, right? We're talking about deployment of broadband fiber, and we're talking about adoption with the whole set of issues that adoption captures beneath it. And that's increasingly the focus that we've had these days. And closing the digital divide is, of course, the phrase. And you see the first item on this slide in the middle there is upward mobility framework. And of course, that's all about digital divide. But what I'd really like us to start talking about is more about what we're referring to increasingly as digital equity. So let's flip it from one side saying it's a deficit that we're trying to close, and let's think of it more as an aspiration that we're trying to achieve. That is broadband for all, using those phrases. It's a great motivator to talk about who's getting left behind. But from an economic development point of view, increasingly what we talk about is the whole notion of not just what are we doing for the sake of business and for creating jobs, but are we creating quality jobs? And rather, more importantly, or not rather, but equally importantly, are we talking about broadly shared opportunity? And of course, without broadband, there is no broadly shared opportunity. Another phrase that I've been reading a lot lately is this whole notion is that broadband is the country's most inequitable infrastructure. So foundational to economic development, of course, is what do we, when we're looking at things as simple as job creation, or business attraction, we get a call from the governor's office. Business X from somewhere in the Midwest is looking to move to California. And of course, they're interested in the California markets. But then it comes down to what are your roads? What is your attachment to railroad? What is your attachment to ports and airports? And increasingly, what is your attachment to meaningful, high-speed, ubiquitous, affordable, reliable, high-speed communication? And so just to hit that first point again, we can't really be talking about economic development anymore, especially in the post-COVID era, unless we're talking about broadly shared upward mobility. And if broadband is the country's most inequitable infrastructure, and we have aspirations for digital equity as opposed to just closing the digital divide, then this is a fundamental element of economic development. As Bill mentioned, we got into this stuff, kind of thought we were invited to apply for being one of the broadband consortium from the CPUC. In our 3 counties here, we're not covered, as a handful of others weren't. And we dove into it from an economic development organization point of view. Wow, this is critical to how business connects to global economy, connects to markets. But of course, we've gotten sucked way deeper into the whole set of issues, which I'll come back to in a moment. But anyway, the fundamental issue, again, I just want to pound home, is we want to close the digital divide, but I really want to start shifting the discussion to digital equity. What are we doing to have an aspirational goal for making sure that we're in alignment with California's broadband for all kind of language? I also note that Bill is our leading advocate here for the language of smart city. And I love the phrase smart city as well, but I'm also sometimes anxious about it in terms of, does it resonate with rural communities? Does it resonate with closing equity, inequity, et cetera? So we'll keep all of these phrases in our heads, on our toes. Moving through the rest of this slide here, Uplift Central Coast. So you guys are all probably familiar. We're part of a 6-county regional initiative financed by the federal government through California, primarily a California initiative for us called California Jobs First. And the whole idea there again is to say, let's look at regions across California. We're one of 13 regions, the 6 counties, Santa Cruz down through Ventura County. And to use a phrase that's becoming a little quaint in the post-COVID environment, let's focus on economic development that addresses the disproportionate impacts of COVID, or what COVID did to exacerbate some of the inequity in communities generally. So the whole focus is on 2 sort of ways in Uplift Central Coast. Sorry, tripping over my tongue there. I want to get to the notion of these key industries for investment, precision manufacturing, et cetera. But what we've identified through Uplift Central Coast is that across these 6 counties, something in the neighborhood of 40 to 42% of workers and families in every one of these counties is living below what might be considered reasonably a self-sufficiency standard. That is, are you earning enough money to afford housing, afford healthcare, transportation, all the early child education, you name it. And 40% of our population is not there. And that means the other way to look at it is that probably as many as 40% of all jobs are not paying a living wage such that families can find that path forward. And that's why we've landed on these particular sets of industries: precision manufacturing, advanced business services. Entrepreneurship is an incredibly broad category, ag tech, et cetera. And as you're probably thinking, I would imagine all of you, all of these, depending on where you're playing in the entrepreneurship networks, are highly dependent on infrastructure, high-speed communication, affordable, reliable, universally available, not just to reach your markets, but to manage your business. Whether we're talking telehealth, we're talking community engagement, we're talking all of those aspects, educational outcomes, social supports. But we landed on these understanding that we were looking at simultaneously these foundational issues of what are the barriers to families reaching a self-sufficiency standard. And so we want to emphasize work in these regions, or excuse me, in these sectors. And then finally, this third bullet, connecting across communities, improve stability, resilience. One of the things that we found also, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this, and I'm going to take this slide or this phrase in a slightly different direction, is that both businesses and communities that improve their performance by any measure on diversity, equity, and inclusion, to use a phrase that's kind of become standard in all our vocabularies lately, actually perform better in terms of business outcomes and community outcomes. But if we're going to do that, then we need to make sure that we've got marginalized groups, people of color, everybody else and lastly, we're still not out of the woods in the notion of every business that we talk to is looking at, are they finding the applicant pool to fill jobs they have? And a lot of that is talking about a skills gap, but it's also talking about fundamentally just a labor gap. That is, lots of people have left the region because they can live cheaper elsewhere. The fundamental issue for us now is the degree to which we are connecting the existing labor pool, that is the potential labor pool, to quality jobs. And if we're going to do that, then we need to be reaching out more effectively to marginalized groups to make sure they're affording themselves the opportunity of workforce skills enhancements of all kinds, digital equity, digital skills improvement. So everywhere we look at this, we want to be able to overcome and be resilient relative to natural disasters. We need high-speed communication to assure that we've got a rapid redeployment of resources. There's no aspect of economic development that isn't 100% dependent on this infrastructure. It's no longer, as Bill has pointed out repeatedly, phone lines, roads, railroad, airspace, et cetera. It's actually the ability to move information rapidly across all boundaries, and that's what we're about. I'm starting to ramble a little longer than I wanted to. Can I stop there, Malika, and happy to chat with anybody who wants to add better, more detail to any of this?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to open it up to questions or comments on the notion. I know that it does feel like, most of the folks on this call are aligned with this, but it's a reminder of the importance of that last mile and digital equity into engaging all of the community members in our areas for, self-sufficiency and a better way of life moving forward.
So I missed one point that I think is probably implied throughout, and I'm sure we want to move on to the next. It's been very difficult for researchers to really document the degree to which a community with better broadband than its reasonably similarly situationed other communities. But there's more and more data that shows the correlation is becoming more stable, higher, more reliable, more consistent. Regions that have high-speed communication infrastructure that is on the top end of the spectrum, better economic stability in terms of resilience to disruption, higher educational outcomes, better distribution of social supports for low-income communities and of facilitating their advancement and upward mobility, increased civic engagement, and better health and equity outcomes of all kinds. If those aren't fundamental to economic prosperity, nothing is. And so we know that we've got a tiger by the tail in trying to figure out how we get broadband adoption and deployment further along. Cool.
Thank you. We'll give a couple seconds if anybody wants to add any points there. So poignant. Sorry, go ahead.
Echo one of Bruce's points, and focusing a lot on business attractions in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara County, but a lot of the companies we're talking to really are looking at for a higher level of broadband deployment, and that is across the board from like you said, ag tech to precision manufacturing, aerospace, particularly companies that might not be in that high tech category most of the time, but are just still expecting that infrastructure is already in place. And so, as we look at areas that might be right for development or right for opportunity, but haven't been built out, or some of those pockets in our area, it's created a lot of those challenges on the attraction side as well.
And I think a lot of the challenge there too is like engaging with our municipal and our county partners too in identifying the barriers for getting that deployment and that shovel-ready sort of engagement to move forward in the next step, right, of building out our communities. Very cool. Well, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Michael. So we'll invite Jamie and Vivian to talk a little bit about the EDC's Digital Upskill Initiative, which I referenced a little bit earlier as one of the cohorts in Santa Barbara County just completing. And so we can learn a bit more about that.
Great. Malika, thank you. We appreciate the invitation. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Vivian and I both have the pleasure of working on this digital upskilling initiative for Ventura County, along with Bruce, who you just heard from, our boss. And anyway, we love the work that we're doing, love being a part of the EDC. And we just wanted to share some of the work that we're up to, because this is, to carry on Bruce's theme, this is absolutely an economic mobility initiative that we want to be sure and share with you. We do have a few slides. I don't know if Vivian can share her screen, and we'll run through those. Excellent. Thank you. So let me just start by giving a little bit of background on this initiative. There we go. Perfect. The funding that we have for this project is part of a $5 million grant that was secured by Assembly Member Jackie Irwin back in the 21-22 state budget. And it is for specifically around digital upskilling and to create a pilot that could be expanded, creating it in Ventura County and then expanding it across other parts of California. We began with by conducting research, developing the initiative, and pulling together an implementation team that we'll talk a little more about a little later on. Initially, it was a 3-year grant, and we have expanded that. The project now runs through the end of 2025. And again, this is setting up a pilot that can be expanded across all of California. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Vivian. We're seeking to serve 3 cohorts of people through this initiative. The first are people who really need help developing basic digital skills to get a well-paying job. Secondly, we are serving people who already have some basic digital skills, but they need an industry-recognized credential to get a better paying job. And then our third group is small business owners and entrepreneurs who have a business, but they need help getting their business online and marketing their business. Originally, we set out with the goals of serving 400 people in the county. And we want, as I've said, develop really sustainable and replicable pilot that can be expanded across California to prepare workers really at all different levels with digital skills that they need to be successful. And we want to make sure that we're increasing the earning potential of all the completers. And our goal is to place 100 to 200 people in higher paying jobs. So I would like to go ahead and share a little more about the first cohort that we're serving, people who need to develop basic digital skills. The course that we have to serve them is called Computer Basics. And as you can see here from everything that's included in the course, that's really exactly what it is: how to turn on a computer, how to create email using Chromebooks, an introduction to the internet, word processing, and then we wrap it up with video calling. A little more background on this course. Really, during this course, students are introduced to the very basic functions of using a computer, because in all cases, our participants have never had a computer before that they can use. The course is designed to give individuals the basic skills and confidence that they need to navigate digital devices, to be more technically proficient in the workplace, and to be able to advance to a better job. Also to access additional adult education and community college courses that apply and can help them gain additional digital skills. So this is about the term that we hear a lot, digital literacy, right? How do we help people develop the confidence that they can learn in the basic skills that they can move into more learning? Go ahead, Vivian. Thank you. More information about the course. The classes that we provide are free to all learners. It's designed to be a short course. It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. The important thing is that there's 24 hours of curriculum and instruction included in the course. We try to keep the classes small, usually a maximum of 20. We have a few classes that have gone a little over that, but we want to make sure people are getting individual attention and the help that they need and the answers to the questions that they have. The course has been provided across the county by the adult schools in Ventura County. The curriculum has been made available in English and in Spanish, and everyone who completes the course receives a Chromebook. And we try to provide, the course direct to the community as much as possible using the existing network of adult schools, K through 12 schools, also some housing projects, and we've even done one course in the Juvenile Justice Center as well. So the impact to date for this course, we developed an aligned curriculum in both languages, and again, it's being used across all of the adult schools. It's the first time that all of the adult schools in Ventura County have come together to develop one curriculum that's being used. We've trained over 300 people so far, and our goal has doubled. We're now hoping to reach at least 400. 18 courses have been provided to date. We already are starting to expand it. Malika mentioned some of the work that's going on in Santa Barbara County already. And we're hoping to continue to expand it beyond that to other parts of California. We have about 30 classes that are going to be provided through the first part of this year, and continue to expand that. And then some of the really encouraging stories that we've heard from people who have participated in the course. We conducted 6-month follow-up to people who were in the pilot. Most people continue to use their Chromebooks 3 to 7 times a week. The course has really given them confidence to do new things using technology. 80% want to take another computer class, which is an outstanding outcome to have. And 53% self-reported that the course helped them get a better job. And also that they now have access to things that have improved their daily life, online scheduling, remote education opportunities, and other online resources. And then the last point on computer basics before I turn it over to Vivian, we have developed a computer basics replication toolkit. So all of the curriculum, all of the tools and resources that we've developed in conjunction with this course are free and available for you to take them and use them and implement them in your area. We're even happy to provide instructor training to make sure that the instructors have their questions answered and are ready to hit the ground running to provide a successful program in your area. So would love to talk more about that, answer any questions you have, but please know that these materials are available. You can take them and you can use them where you are. So Vivian?
Jamie. So I'm going to take it from here and talk a little bit more about the 2 other cohorts that Jamie mentioned at the beginning. And I'm also part of the BCPC team too, so I want to give a little bit of background that what's helpful is that I kind of have 1 foot in the adoption and 1 foot in the deployment piece. And so it's really helpful to kind of see how it's important for us to think about what's going to come after when we think about broadband deployment, what's going to come after that. How can we make sure that people actually know how to use the resources and are able to connect digitally? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the next cohort, the ICT upskilling for current workers. And as Jamie mentioned, this is kind of the secondary piece for folks who already have those basic digital skills, but that really want to build on them. And especially for folks who want to get into the IT industry or other really high in demand tech industries, there are very high barriers to entry. And so what we thought is that connecting with folks who do more of these certificates, for example, AWS, and I'll talk a little bit about them afterwards, and GBL, who do these CompTIA certificates, CompTIA who does these certificates as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but these really help decrease the barriers to entry for this industry, and especially in Ventura County, which is a very high cost of living area. Having these entry-level jobs that pay really well is super important. So for the ICT upskilling piece, just to make it a little bit more confusing, we have 3 different cohorts within this one class. We have 2 different programs running. So we've contracted with CompTIA, who is providing virtual cohort training to folks who are interested in getting their CompTIA A+ or Security Plus certification. And then we also have partners with GBL, who is offering the Amazon Web Services certification, which is also online and self-paced as well. Those certificates that GBL offers can also be stacked on top of each other. So you can start with the cloud foundations and then go on to cloud architecting and cybersecurity. And these are really high in demand certifications. So we're working with both of them to offer these. And like Jamie said, it's really important to us that these were no cost and making sure that they were flexible and accessible to folks. So you can do this at your own pace. And we have folks already kind of moving through this. So I'll talk a little bit about the impact as well. As I mentioned, you can stack those credentials on top of each other. So folks can kind of start at one, and it allows you to really start to get job opportunities sooner rather than having to wait 2, 3, 4 years if you were getting a full-time in school degree. In addition to that, GBL and CompTIA are also providing support for folks who are done with the certificates and then want to get a job. So they're helping with LinkedIn, resumes, and also GBL is hiring some of the completers into internships at GBL. Next, I'm going to talk about the last piece, which is to get your small business online. Our last course is Get Your Small Business Online, and it is a 9-week course that is focused on business owners and entrepreneurs who really want to expand their digital presence and digital skills in order to grow and sustain their business in a digital world. As part of the course, students are learning how to create a website or how to update their website, how to use email marketing, how to make sure that they're searchable online, all of these things that are really, really important for entrepreneurs and business owners who are trying to survive and grow in today's world. This class is taught by a Small Business Development Center advisor from the EDC, and they also are given an advisor that they're paired with to make sure that they have the support that they need past the course. We really saw this need for the Get Your Small Business Online course, especially during COVID. EDC has a Small Business Development Center, and so they received a lot of calls from folks who didn't know how to, create an online, form or fill that out or be able to send in applications for PPP loans and things like that. And so it just became really apparent that even just the basic digital skills, specifically for business owners and entrepreneurs, would be incredibly helpful. Here's just a quote from a business SBDC advisor who works with business owners, just reiterating that point that it really is something that's needed, especially for non-traditional occupations and small business owners who may not have those essential skills. The course is taught both in person and online. It's taught in English and in Spanish. The students can also get a Chromebook if it's needed, and we provide internet support as well. And as I mentioned, the participants do receive 5 hours of one-on-one business consulting as part of that, which is the SBDC advisor. In terms of the training needs that are included in this course, there's basic computer skills, digital business basics, online and social media marketing, and then also technology adoption to make sure that small business owners know how to do sales and technology that's needed for businesses. In terms of the impact, we've had great success with this so far. Most of the participants have been female, people of color, and also older participants as well, which are really the people that we were trying to make sure that we reached through this course. And we gave you a lot of information there, but these are the 3 cohorts that we have. We just want to share a little bit more too about kind of what's coming next. As Jamie said, there's the Computer Basics Replication Toolkit, and then also the Get Your Small Business Online. We are also, I shouldn't say we who's partnering with us is also helping build out that curriculum replication toolkit. And so that hopefully will be shared later this summer. So we really want to make sure this is accessible and out there for folks. We are still running classes for Computer Basics, Get Your Small Business Online, for ICT upskilling. So we want to share those out with you all. If you know anyone or you're interested to kind of share out those courses, we'd be happy to do that. But then also talk about sustainability and what do these courses look like once that grant ends. And Jamie, I'm sure there's a lot more to say. Is there any other wisdom and parting thoughts you'd like to share?
No, Michael, thank you for your comment. Yes, as we think about giving people the opportunities to upskill and to learn, if we can't get both the work that you all are doing to get broadband across the region, but also helping make sure they have the digital literacy, that they're able to take advantage of really some amazing online learning opportunities that are now available that haven't been available in the past. The two really do go hand in hand, and it's so critical. I was at the, I don't know if any of you were at the ASU GSV conference this week. Always so inspiring to hear the education thought leaders talking about their vision for the future. But Michael Crow talked about how, education is now this thing that is available to everyone, everywhere, if we can just get them the broadband access that they need and the digital literacy that they need. And his vision for making learning kind of the equivalent of food, that you have all of these options and choices that you can go and pick what you want, pick what you need, and learn as you go. Upskilling is just so critical right now. We're thrilled to be a part of this initiative, and please let us know how we can help expand it to your counties.
Well, thank you, Vivian and Jamie, and to the EDC too. I think in my past life I was a adjunct professor, and so building out curriculum is no joke. It's not an easy feat, and to have a curriculum that is so accessible and user friendly for not only the students but also the instructors and organizations to implement, and to have it at no cost to the community is awesome. Alma, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, Jamie, the average, well, actually, I'm more interested in if the advanced in age population has been attending a lot of your digital literacy training.
Yeah, absolutely. We our average age for the computer basics, Vivian, help me out, it's over 50. And the majority of the people participating are female. And many of the students that we've had have had English is not their primary language.
Oh, okay. And the reason why I'm asking is because, for example, we have grants that we applied for at Santa Barbara County Workforce Development Board that assist the English language learners. We're looking at those that are advanced in age and seeing like what's out there for them and if there's an interest for them to return to work. So there's some different populations that we're really looking into, and I'm just curious, wondering if there is that interest, especially with the advanced in age.
Yes, although I refer to people in their 50s as youngsters now.
Okay.
So I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the advanced in age part.
I know, right? Okay,
And
youngsters.
50, let's call them 50-year-old youngsters.
Okay.
But no, absolutely, that's a group that we're trying to help and are serving really predominantly through this course.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Alma too, for the City of Galida's grant, 3 of the cohorts for the new to tech learners are specifically, to try and engage what has been identified as mature or re-entry workers, right? And so those would be folks who maybe didn't have the in-school instruction on how to engage with technology, either because of age or not being in the free society, if they were incarcerated or etc. And so I think that's where a lot of the opportunity lies, right? In engaging folks and just the cohort that wrapped in Galita. And I don't know if we have anybody from AGIF on the call right now, but the Spanish language cohort, the students were so excited. They were really engaged. They're hungry to learn more, and not only in the computer space, but to go to do more classes in general. And that is kind of, that's the fodder that helps fuel, the deployment conversation, right? Is bringing folks along for the ride and projecting them towards, their next journey and their next level of aspiration. Thank you. All right, so I just want to again thank Jamie and Vivian and Bruce for spending some time to talk to us. I know it's a little bit different from some of our other monthly advisory meeting topics, but we just want to remind, it's just the reminder that the deployment has a purpose, and the purpose is to engage our communities and uplift our communities and continue to do the work of making sure it's equitable for all. So with that, I'll go into some updates, some general updates that we have from CDT, CASIF, and CPUC. This slide has, a lot of dates and times on it because there are a few upcoming meetings that are important for folks to attend if they're interested. The first is the California Broadband Council meeting, which is scheduled for April 23rd. And that in that meeting it's a general, I believe it's the second 2024 update by the CDT, CPUC, and CETF related to the initiatives for broadband for the state's Broadband for All programming. for the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, the Q2 Advisory Council is scheduled to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. In addition to that, there are some updates to the statewide Middle Mile network map that is on the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative website now. There are some new layers. There are new updates related to documenting updates on the Middle Mile and providing updates on in progress construction or shovel-ready construction. For the last mile programming, there's the CASIF annual public workshop, which is a long workshop, but it is scheduled for April 29th. That's the annual workshop engaging stakeholders, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, service providers to talk about the different opportunities within broadband for the last mile. FFA applications, we have not heard any additional announcements. If anybody on the call does have anything else, please feel free to share there. The loan loss reserve fund was or application period for the first round of applications closed on April 9th, and they received over $430 million in applications. We have received some indication that from an applicant that their loan loss reserve has no implication to any FFA applications as well. There's no, there may be crossover in terms of alignment, but no impact on either application if you have applied for one. The CASIF broadband public housing account and the tribal technical assistance programs have modifications approved as of the March 7th vote with CPUC, and that really covers expanded eligibility and the types of expense reimbursements available for both of those accounts. And the CASIF infrastructure grant, no new updates there. It's just a reminder that the 2023 awards were delayed until June 2024. And then also just a reminder, if you have applications or interested in applications, we can help. And also the broadband caseworkers for CPUC are available for help with applications as well. And I ran through that pretty quickly. So if anybody has any questions or want to point out anything that I missed there, please feel free to interject. Okay, we can move on. As far as BEAD updates, BEAD's Volume 1 was approved by NTIA on April 4th. The challenge process website is up. However, I believe that there is no vote yet on when the challenge process will begin. Once CPUC does vote on the challenge process, there's 60, they'll decide whether it's 60 or 90 days for the challenge process. But in the meantime, we do remind you and encourage you to get your Tier E license to view the BEAD underlying serviceable location data, which will be the only data used to for challenges. And that Tier E license is free to local governments, tribes, and tribal entities and nonprofit organizations. And to reach out to broadband caseworkers for direct assistance with BEAD questions and the BEAD challenge process. There will be a webinar on April 24th that is going to go over the model BEAD challenge process, which I believe is what CPUC modeled Volume 1 after. And oh, I see Gladys has a comment here. The earliest CPUC meeting for a vote might be 5/9. Yeah, I believe there's a CPUC voting meeting today, and I scoured the agenda and I did not see any broadband, any BEAD related activities on there. So we'll keep an eye on that for the 5/9 agenda as well. Alrighty. Any questions on BEAD challenge? Tier E licensing. I know that's been a little confusing or for some folks. Nope. Okay. So we're lucky to have Gladys from NTIA on with us today. And so Gladys, I wondered if I could invite you to chat on the state digital equity plan that was approved by NTIA at the end of March.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. It's always a pleasure because I have just a little bit of history with your region. I'm a proud gaucho. In fact, I'm heading over to Goleta tomorrow morning for the weekend with friends. And there's a lot of familiar faces on this call. And it's good to meet you, Malika. And I also really appreciated all the updates and hearing all the activities and efforts and work that is going on in the region, because it's heartening to see such a change. Bill and Bruce already mentioned it. We've been doing this for a long time, and so to see all the activity, such robust activity is just amazing, and that there's all this funding is amazing. Also, the discussions around equity and the importance of that, and what that brings to economic development. I heard somebody long ago say that equity is actually economic development, and so I really believe that, and you all are proof in the pudding. And let's see what else. Also, the workforce piece that are happening both from the basic level to the most advanced workforce efforts that you just spoke about are great to hear. California Department of Labor is very much aware of all of that, and especially the workforce piece on the infrastructure altogether, in addition to the broadband infrastructure workforce that's really lacking at this point, and hopefully will be built up in time for all the infrastructure and networking builds that are coming up. So I'm just gonna do a quick overview. Let me introduce myself. Gladys Popolatuk. I'm a federal program officer with NTIA, with the Department of Commerce. That's where NTIA lives. I am one of 2 federal program officers for California. California is the only state in the country that has 2 of us. And we have split the work geographically and also programmatically. Programmatically, I focus on the digital equity side of the coin with the digital equity programs out of this broadband infrastructure law programs, and my partner Marina McClatchy focuses on the infrastructure side of the coin, so more on the BEAD funds and working with the CPUC, and I work with the CDT, or Department of Technology. As you all probably know, I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with the overall scheme of things, but as you're probably aware, CDT received, or California received last year, $4 million in planning, we're allocated $4 million for planning grants, and they have spent that year producing the digital equity plan, as well as some robust outreach and engagement that I know all of you were a part of. And so they just got approved that plan last month, and are now in addition to that, NTIA has produced the next phase of the program, which is the digital equity capacity grants allocations. And so California's allocation was announced, and California has been allocated $70.2 million for their capacity grants. The state will use that allocation to implement their state digital equity plan. So they are in the midst now of putting together their application for the capacity grants using the state digital equity plan, as well as really building out what that program will look like. So they are likely to do a combination of sub-granting as well as doing some contractual work, whether it's interagency within the state of California or with other community-based organizations like AGIF or others, other CBOs that work in this digital equity, digital inclusion realm. And so what does that program look like? They have until May 28th to get their application and program kind of sussed out and put into an application proposal, send it into NTIA. NTIA will review it and go through some curing and comments and back and forth with CDT or the state of California on that proposal. And then NTIA will announce grants no later than the end of August 2024. So by the end of August, California will know whether the plan is approved or not the plan, but the proposal application. In addition to the capacity grants, NTIA is expected to launch the $1.25 billion competitive grant program. After we begin awarding the capacity grants, eligible entity applicants for this program include, for example, some political subdivisions of states, native entities, nonprofits, community anchor institutions, local educational agencies, workforce development organizations, and territories. For potential grantees for this program, it's crucial to remember that there are strength in numbers. NTIA urges potential grantees to work together, pool your resources and expertise to submit strong collaborative proposals to address the needs of your communities. The competitive grant program will differ in that there will be a national pool of applicants that you will be competing against. And the capacity grants are really California focused. The state will administer them. And so that will be the pool of applicants that that folks will be competing against there. I'm going to include more links and information at the end of this and I'll put it into the chat. I think that is it. Malika, anything else that you wanted me to cover?
No, thank you. I'm so happy that you were able to be on the call to provide that. And there's been some interest on the competitive grants side, and we're eager to hear more about how that's gonna look and how folks can engage within the communities.
I should also mention, I forgot, for the capacity grants, a part of the overall allocation for the country, there is a set aside for territories and tribal entities. So more information will be put out about that hopefully soon. And so we'll share that when it comes out.
So the NOFO for the tribal entities and native populations, that application period though is not it's not the same as the state allocation application.
Yeah, it's a few months off, right? The May 28th is for the states to get their applications in, and then I don't have it in my notes or in my brain what the timeline is for the territories and tribal entities.
Gotcha. And do you know whether those entities should have already submitted an equity plan for
well, the territories, in fact, I'm reviewing Guam's now. Okay. But the territories are finishing up and submitting their digital equity plans now. The tribes are not required, I don't think, to have a digital equity plan. And so the capacity grant opportunity will just rely on what their application will be. But many of them have another big difference from when Bill and Bruce and I started this is that there's so much happening within tribal communities, so much. So they may not have a formal plan, but there is definitely awareness and engagement and activities happening.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? Let me know.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Gladys before I just wrap us on the digital equity, the other digital equity points? All right. So just two other points to bring up on the digital equity front. CETF has launched a program, a leading Pacesetter local government working group program, in which they are inviting local governments, counties, and cities to engage with other local governments and participate in going through their best practices checklist on digital equity. It is a fairly short checklist when you read it, but engaging all of those elements within your different government agencies is the point of engaging with the checklist. And the program does afford a small stipend for participation. And so we are encouraging our local governments and local agencies to attend a webinar to learn more about the local government, and we'll follow up with an invitation to that webinar and to understand a little bit more what the working group will be doing. In addition, it's not news to anybody, but ACP is scheduled to expire next month. The FCC has announced their partial subsidies for the month of May, and that is, I believe, $15 for most folks and $30 for our tribal entities and tribal folks living on tribal lands. There, I believe, is a discharge petition circulating through Congress to vote on to force a vote on the funding, on refunding ACP or continuing with the funding, and I do not know what the current status of that is. But that is circulating. And just a reminder, the regional impact of expiration of ACP in our region on the low end, taking into account the number of households enrolled, is a $2.4 million per month for our community members. So I know that many community-based organizations and counties have already submitted letters urging Congress to continue funding ACP. So we'll see how that goes. But it is unfortunately not looking great right now. And so, we do need to be prepared for folks to be dropping off of connectivity or trying to get engaged with providers who are offering options that could help bridge the need there. And so with that, that's our digital equity updates. If we can move on to our final slide, this is just a look ahead of what we will be talking about next month. Bill, if you're still on, if you want to share a couple words on this, and then we can wrap up for the day.
Sure, we've already started working on next month's meeting, and the words in the blue area there: open access, connecting municipal assets, resiliency, inclusion, traffic, and public safety, smart city. Those are all big words. And what happens is we realize that these are all important things, but they're all the same elephant. They really are all tied to broadband. And we're going to be really, in the next few weeks, in anticipation of our next meeting together, deconstructing it quite a bit, but then pulling it back together and coming up with some ideas of how best to communicate this. We really do as part of the strategy in Ventura County, but this applies to the two counties north as well. We had the same kind of discussions as we were dealing with Santa Barbara County when developing the Santa Barbara County strategy. What is the role of government? And from a governance standpoint, all of these things are important, and we do need the public sector to weigh in a big way. And how do we communicate that to them to make sure that they do come along and are interested in leading the way to creating these communities of the future? So that's just a glimpse, a cameo, a preview of coming attractions, and we'll look forward to the discussion this next month.
Thank you, Bill. And with that, we have come to the conclusion of our content today. I'd love to open it up for anybody to impart some last words of thought or last questions or last flags to raise. our contact information is on here. We'll follow up with the webinar, with our meeting today with a recording of the webinar, in addition to some action items and a list of the meetings we had referenced as well. Also, some information on connecting with Jamie and Vivian on the upskill programming, so that you can bring them up to your communities. This works for government entities, it works for not CBOs, and it works for, folks who own businesses and want to bring up their communities as well too. Jeff, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, just a question for this is an interesting group. We've been looking at how to refer to cities that we've built out fiber to the home. In the past, we used to use the term gigabit cities. But now gigabit is so common, there's been some discussion that, it's kind of that's really not that exciting to anybody anymore. I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts on, kind of another way to name or refer to cities that have pretty much every home and business built out with fiber. Any thoughts about kind of a catchy way to express that?
I'm all ears, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, I'm listening. I was just on a meeting right before we jumped on this one where we were talking about that, and I thought, well, what better group to talk about this?
And I know that I've gotten a lot of pushback, just throwing out the term smart city, because it's large, it's amorphous, nobody knows what it means.
Yeah.
The problem or opportunity or challenge, I guess, is that the last mile fiber, what you're talking about, infrastructure, is just that. It's buried in its infrastructure. The city is not made by the fiber. The fiber just enables everything else to occur. What is unique about the cities is the conversations and the planning and the initiatives and the technology that is enabled by the fiber. And until you get the civic leaders engaged to talk about what it's going to look like, we're not going to see the leadership required to answer your question. We want our city to be known for this destination, this place, this capabilities, these things, and it's all enabled by fiber. That's where I hope we can take the public sector next in responding, and each city will become their own in terms of what they do with it.
Yeah, well, we're working on it internally, and I'll pass along whatever we come up with.
Yeah, no, I want to invent something different than smart city. I mean, we've got to create a new set of terms, because the old terms have been used and abused, and at this point, where we're going, there aren't any roads. We really have got to create the future of what these new terms are going to be. Connected communities is not enough.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, it's a fun question that you could see taking a day of many whiteboards, just putting out words and crossing them out and putting it words.
And I remember, our Google Fiber marches down Higuera Street, with gigabit city signs and all this stuff. And then, now gigabit speeds are pretty common with technologies other than fiber. And it never occurred to me that people would see the term gigabit as meaning 1 gigabit. I always thought it was, gigabits, and a lot of the technology we put out now will at least do 10 gigabits, So anyway, we're going to noodle on it at Astound, and it just, if anybody else has any thoughts, I'd certainly be interested to hear your ideas.
Yeah, well, let us know what you find out.
Okay.
All righty. Well, we are at 12:40. We can wrap a little early. We can continue to stay on if folks want to chat any further. But I really want to thank you again. Especially, this is my first time leading the meeting, so I apologize if I'm not Shelby, because she's such a great leader. But I hope we were able to gather what we could and share what we could, and provide the resource for you and the community. So I thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next month.